I don't have to be God. Now, he was God. Please don't misunderstand. It's very tricky stuff we're going to navigate through here. He did not say that God can be the same and it ain't never going to be any way different. I am willing to empty myself and take on the form of a servant. Are you willing to let go of your identity? Oh, Robert, I'm an officer at KCM. I've always wanted to be an officer. Okay, resign tomorrow. But what will KCM do without me? Probably just fine, actually. It's hard to imagine. You ever heard the bucket of water thing? Take a bucket of water. Stick your fist in it. Okay? Now pull your fist out. That's how big of a hole you leave when you die. It's true. I left Philippi. I had another pastor within 6 months. Church is growing. Going great. I didn't leave any hole at all. You wouldn't even known I'd been there. How many other officers? I bet you can't even name the KCM officers from 5 years ago. And yet they sweated for this organization. They loved this place. They prayed for this place. Who runs it? The officers or God? God. God didn't need any of us. We get this idea that, I need this. Jesus, I mean, the world needs Jesus. Okay? He looked at God and he said, you know what? I'm God, but you know what? I'm willing to let that go. And Paul says that needs to be your attitude. If Jesus, being God of the universe, said, I don't have to be equal with God, I can let that go, then you, being a little peon, should definitely be able to let go of whatever it is that you're hanging on to. Notice what he did in verse 7. It said he made himself nothing. Okay, how many different versions? You got to fess up if you don't have ESV. What other versions do you have there? What's the first phrase in verse 7? What do you have? What's the NIV say? Somebody's got to have that. Made himself nothing. NASB.
But emptied himself.
Emptied himself. New King James.
Made himself of no reputation.
Made himself of no reputation. Any other versions? Anything else? Anybody got a Korean Bible? What is the Korean translated in English? Okay, here's the trick, and here's what we got to work through. The Greek word there is kenosis, okay? The question is, what does kenosis mean? Okay, if Jesus gave up his godness, he would not be God. But was Jesus God? He was God. So whatever he gave up, he didn't give up his godness. But he very clearly emptied himself, made himself nothing. What did he do? You tell me. What did he do? He came in the likeness of man. What was involved? What took place? What did he give up? Huh? Came under the law. What did he give up? His glory. What things could he give up without giving up his godness? We'll probably never figure it out because theologians have debated this for 2,000 years. But now you can... But now that we're here, we're going to solve it, all right? The one thing that we know that Jesus gave up, apparently, and I think the version's right, he definitely gave up his ability, his independent access to his God, to his godness. He was God, but he gave up his rights to exercise his attributes without God's permission. Okay? In other words, there's actually a verse, I should have looked it up before I came here, but it says that the power of the Lord was present with him to heal. Whenever Jesus healed someone, he didn't just say, well, I'm God, of course I'm going to heal you. He basically looked at God and said, may I use my godness to heal this person? And God said yes. This is where, at the temptation, did Jesus have the power to turn stones into bread? Yes, he did. But did he exercise that right, or did he look to God and say, I'm going to trust in you, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. Every day that Jesus walked on this earth, he was God, and he had the power to do anything that he wanted to, but he never did anything without submitting to his Father first. He completely gave up his freedoms to do things without first getting permission from God. Does that make sense? It's kind of like when you get married, you do this. Right now, you guys can go anywhere you want to go, and you can do anything you want to do, okay? I still have the power to do anything I want to do, and to go anywhere I want to go, but I can't, okay? I have to pull out my phone and press 2, and that rings my boss, and I get permission from her to go where I want to go and do what I want to do, okay? When Jesus came to earth, he got married. All right? He suddenly, in a sense, he gave up. Can you imagine the power that that's giving up? To spend eternity being God. I think I'll create a world today. I think I'll hold the world together by the word of my power. I think I'll do this. And then suddenly to say, that's not worth hanging on to. From here on out, Father, whatever you tell me to do, I'll do. If you tell me to go to a cross, I'll go to a cross. If you tell me to come in likeness of sinful flesh, do you realize the insult? God to come down here in a human form, to be birthed into a stable? Do you realize the total humiliation? And yet Christ said he'd do it. And Paul says, if you just have the slightest little hope in the gospel, can you please have that same mind and get along with each other? Doesn't that kind of make our people problems pale? I don't like him, he's dating my ex-girlfriend. Okay? Yeah, Jesus kind of gave up all of his godness, was born into a manger, so I think he probably gave up a little bit more than you do. Maybe you can get along with the guy that's dating your ex-girlfriend. Maybe she'll dump him like she dumped you, She can pray that way. He took the form of a servant, a bondservant. The master and Lord of the universe took on the form of a slave. Think about our culture, guys. We have our rights. The way we look is important. How much money do we spend on our wardrobes? And yet Jesus took on the form of a bondservant. No offense, we all think we're pretty good, and we look in the mirror and we're like, yeah, Jesus looked and said, man, I got reduced to this. God being reduced to the form of a man. It's crazy. And not only that, but verse 8, being found in human form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on the cross. Men, I want to talk to you for a minute. Ephesians chapter 5 says that husbands are to love their wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself for her. Men, God calls you to get married. Marriage is hard. It's very hard. Paula and I are the most compatible people that our psychologist, when we had pre-marriage counseling with a psychologist, he ran us through this 500 question test, said we were the most compatible couple he'd ever seen in his life. In fact, he didn't have any counseling to give us. He's like, yeah, you guys are perfect. Okay? We have had so much stress in our marriage, I don't see how anybody gets married. In fact, we laugh about that all the time. We're like, well, we're the most compatible. There's no way any marriage lasts because, we're all the time crossing wires. And most of the time I think I'm right. And I go to God and I say, God, you can't put me through this. She is not listening to me. She is wrong. And this is just ruining my life. And God looks at me and he says, well, are you dead yet? I'm like, no, but I'm going to be if you don't change her. And God looks at me and he says, well, my son died, so once you're dead, then we'll know she pushed you too far. I'm like, you're kidding me. He says, no. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself for her.